In Pokémon Brilliant Diamond, there's a limited number of encounters. This can be a good and bad thing, because it can mean sometimes I can select the specific Pokémon that I want since it'll be the only one left in the route. Other times, I won't be able to select a Pokémon at all because I would have already caught everything in that area. If a Pokémon faints in battle, I have to release it. I can't use items in battle apart from held items. I have to play on set mode. I can't level past the next gym leader's ace. I can only catch one Pokémon per route, and I have to nickname my whole team. We'll also leave the rules in the description, and with that done, let's get started. On Route 201, I catch a Bidoof. I actually wanted to catch a Starly here, but it's okay, I can head over to Lake Verity and catch one instead. Starly's a great encounter for this run, and so is the next one. I head over to Route 202 where I can catch a Shinx. You can get a good team with a wide variety of types this early on, and as I faced the first trainer, I realised I hadn't changed it to set mode. I didn't switch anyway, so I just switched to set mode afterwards. I caught a Badoo on Route 204 and an Abra on Route 203. In the Orberg mine, I caught myself a Geodude, and then on Route 207, I caught a Machop. Starly evolved into Staravia, and it was time to take on Rock at the first gym with rock types. My team going into this fight was Machop, Turtwig, Shinx, Abra, Geodude, and Badoo, and I led with Machop. With two grass types, a fighting type, and a rock type of my own going into this gym, it shouldn't be too difficult. I've also got low sweep on Machop, which is more effective the heavier the enemy Pokemon is. This means in theory, low sweep should sweep his whole team. The only problem is, quite a few rock types have the ability Sturdy, which means they survive with just 1 HP. Kind of annoying, but with Rock just using a potion that doesn't fully heal Geodude anyway, I can just take it out the next turn for free. He's sending in his Onix next, which should be more scary, but it's a lot heavier than Geodude, which means low sweep's going to be even more effective against this thing. I'm pretty sure it has Sturdy as well, and it outspeeds with a rock throw that does basically no damage at all. It does have Sturdy, and I would have taken it out in one hit if it wasn't for that. I go for a low sweep next turn as he just uses a potion again and doesn't fully heal, meaning I get another free KO. Watching this back, I've just realised there's actually two moves: low kick, which is the one that does more damage based on weight, and then low sweep, which will lower the speed of an enemy. I've been using low kick this whole time, so I take one more low kick and knock Cranidos out. This gets me the first gym badge and takes Rock out with just one Pokemon. After this gym, Shinx evolves into Luxio, which is going to be super helpful going forward in this run. As I head over to Florima Town, I can actually get a Mew or a Jirachi here. I'm going to allow the Mew, but I'm not going to accept the Jirachi. I'm also not going to use the Honey Tree above Florima Town, since technically it is a separate area, but I'm just not going to allow it anyway. I think Mew's good enough encounter here. As you just saw before, I caught a Shellos, and that was outside the Valley Windworks, and inside the Valley Windworks, it's time to take on Mars. This is normally quite a difficult fight, but since I've got a Machop with Rock Tomb, I can take out her Zubat straight away. That thing could have been dangerous, since I know Zubat does learn flying type moves which are super effective against Machop, but I managed to take it out in one hit anyway. Next up is her Perugly, which is normally quite a difficult encounter in most runs. I could go for a low sweep here, but instead I decided to go for a revenge and let her hit me first. This was kind of a mistake, as she flinched me with a fake out. I went for revenge again, as she just used a scratch, proccing my Oran Berry to get a little bit of health back. We hit with a double powered revenge and take it out in one hit. This makes a pretty difficult early fight really trivial. After this, I evolved my Abra, and unfortunately the friend I usually trade with to evolve Pokemon wasn't available, so it's going to have to stay as a Kadabra for now. My encounter for Route 205 is a Pachirisu. This is kind of useful, but it's a bit of a glass cannon since it could quite easily be knocked out in one hit. I also evolved my starter Turtwig into a Grottle. My encounter in Eterna Forest could have quite easily been knocked out since you're forced into double battles, but luckily it was only a Wurmple and I managed to catch it in the first ball. Going into this subtly named Gardenia and her grass types, I'm taking Kadabra, Grottle, Staravia, Luxio, Machop and Shellos. I'm leading with Kadabra since he's got Psychic type moves, which are super effective against grass types. She leads with Cherubi, and I go for a Psycho Cut. This doesn't quite do half damage, as she goes for a Grass Knot, doing quite a lot of damage actually. I go for Confusion next turn, and this does a little bit more, and I managed to take it out. I realised I probably should have used Confusion to start with, so I switched my tactic and just go for Confusion from here on out. I take her Turtwig way below half health, as she just goes for a workup. This is great since I can just go for another confusion, taking it out. It's boosted its stats just to die, what a shame. Next up's going to be her Rose Raid, which is the biggest threat on her team. I'm pretty sure this is a poison type too, meaning it would be 4 times weak to psychic moves. I go for a confusion, and I do just over half. After that berry, I'm not sure another one's going to be enough, but I go for it anyway.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine, when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
It's devastating to lose Kadabra here, but I'm going to have to switch out to Staravia and just carry on. Kadabra did a decent chunk to the Rose Raid here, so I should be able to do quite a lot of damage with Staravia and finish it off. She goes for a stun spore, activating the paralysis, but we managed to break through with a wing attack. That's enough to take it out in one hit, and with that we've beaten Gardinia and gotten the second badge. Next, Team Galactic Wasteman is Jupiter, and she sends in her Zubat. I start with Machop, and I'm just going to go for Rock Tomb like I did last time. This will take it out in one hit, and take her into her next team member. Next up is her Skuntank, and I'd actually forgotten at this point in the run that most Skuntanks have the ability Aftermath, which means once you beat it, you take a little bit of damage. I went for a Revenge first turn, as he poisoned me. This is kind of annoying since I only did half the damage that I would normally do, but I went for a Revenge next turn, as he went for a Flamethrower. This activated my Oran Berry, and it meant that now Revenge was going to do double damage. I almost take it out, and activate his berry too. He's got a Citrus Berry, which is going to do a little bit more healing than my Oran Berry did, and I'm probably going to have to switch Machop out here. I decided to switch into Geodude here, as I thought he'd be able to tank a Flamethrower pretty easily. I was right in thinking that it was going to go for a Flamethrower next turn, but I was wrong in the fact that I thought we'd be able to tank it. He took over half our health, and burned us, which means next turn I'm going to have to switch Geodude out again. I'm pretty sure Luxio will be able to tank another hit from Flamethrower, and we also get the Intimidate, not that it really matters. He ends up just going for a Snarl, which I wasn't expecting, but it does lower our special attack, which is kind of annoying. I go for a Spark next turn as he goes for a Flamethrower. Hopefully this doesn't burn, since the attack drop would be a little bit of a problem. He activates our Oran Berry and we hit with a Spark. It's a critical hit and we take it out. Luckily the Aftermath wasn't enough damage to take Luxio out, since I had actually completely forgotten that this even existed, and that could have been really fatal. On Route 211, we managed to get one of the only Fire-type encounters in the entire game, a Ponyta. This is going to be really handy. There are other team members that can learn Fire-type moves, but I'm definitely going to need a Fire-type for the rest of the run. In Mount Cornet, my encounter is a Meditite, which is going to be quite useful. I grab a Stunky of my own on Route 206, and this is going to come in quite handy since it has the Aftermath ability as well. This means if I need to sacrifice a Pokemon, I can quite easily just send Skunky in, and he'll just get killed and activate Aftermath, which will do some damage to whatever I'm dealing with at the time. On Route 208, I catch a Psyduck, which could come in handy. I'm always happy to have extra water types. And on Route 209, my encounter's a Chansey. This could be useful as a tank, since it has a ridiculous amount of HP. On Route 210, I get a pretty useless encounter in a Kricketune. It could be useful maybe later on, but I'm probably just going to put this one in the box for now. I evolved my Machop into a Machoke, and unfortunately my friend wasn't available to evolve it into a Machamp just yet, so it's going to stay a Machoke for now. With that, I'm heading over to the third gym, and I wasn't too worried coming into this one, which is going to turn out to be a bit of a mistake. I honestly thought Staravia was just going to wipe her whole team, especially since I've got Intimidate, which is going to lower her attack as well. I start with an Aerial Ace and take out her Meditite in one hit. She's going to send in her Machoke next, which could be a little bit of an issue, but I think I'll be able to take it out in 2 hits. We go for an Aerial Ace and we do well over half damage. He just goes for a low sweep, and it does actually a lot more than I thought it would. It also lowers our speed, but we still manage to outspeed with another Aerial Ace, taking the Machoke out. Our final Pokemon is Lucario, and I seriously underestimated this thing. It's got a dual type of Steel, which means that my flying type moves aren't going to be super effective. I decided to switch into my Shellos, and a Drain Punch nearly took it out in one hit. This is really bad, but to be honest, I can't afford to switch, so I'm just going to have to suck it off. I let Shellos die, and switch into my next team member. I decided to go for my Luxio here. I could have switched to Ponyta and used the Fire type move, but I wanted to get the Intimidate off first. I hit him with a Spark, thinking it would do quite a lot of damage. He used the Bulk Up, getting his attack and his defense higher. We hit the spark and it did a little bit, but not as much as I was hoping for. I decided to go for another spark as he went for another bulk up. This is getting a little bit dangerous since Drain Punch is going to heal him as well, so if he keeps getting his attack up, this is going to be a big problem. He goes for a Drain Punch next turn, and my fears were correct. He kills Luxio and fully heals. This is so bad. With his attack and defense stat this high, there's not really anything I can send in to deal with him. I decided Machoke was my best bet, since I could go for a revenge, and as long as I survive a Drain Punch, I'll be able to do super damage to it. He uses a Screech for some reason, which lowers my defense. It means I get a revenge off, but it's a little bit weak. I tried to go for another revenge next turn, but since he lowered my defense, he was able to take me out with one Drain Punch and fully heal again. This is really not good. My only hope now is probably Ponyta, but I'm going to send in my Staravia first and get the Intimidate off. I'm probably going to lose Staravia here, but I'm going to go for an Aerial Ace just in case I can hit it. As I thought, one Drain Punch took Staravia down. This is really annoying, but I do have a lot of options in the PC to replace team members, so hopefully Ponyta can finish this off. I'll go for a Flame Charge, and one Drain Punch knocks Ponyta out. It's a critical hit, but I think we would have gone down anyway. All I've got left is my starter, so I send him in, and I don't really know what I can even do here. All my moves are not very effective. I can't set up a Stealth Rock, and I definitely can't set up with Growth. Even if I did, it wouldn't make any difference. We're just too outmatched here. I have a lot of potential encounters that I can get. I can go all around the map getting about 10 more encounters, plus I've got everything in the PC to rebuild the new team. I'm still confident I can do this run, and I'm just going to have to take this one as an L. My starter was not going down without a fight. He held on with 1 HP and healed up with an Oran Berry. He did basically no damage with a Mega Drain and got back to 17 HP. At this point, a Drain Punch was inevitable. It was game over, but it wasn't run over. I still had so many options. So here we go. I released my entire team, my Staravia, my Shellos, my starter, Grottle, my Ponyta, my Luxio, and my Machoke. There's going to be a lot to take in here, so don't blink. I evolved my Zubat into a Golbat for my first new team member. I evolved my Chansey into a Blissey. On Route 212, I catch a Wooper, and I evolve it into a Quagsire. On Route 213, I catch a Floatzel. At the Valor Lakefront, I catch a Girafarig, and in the Great Marsh, I catch a Hoot-Hoot. I evolve my Hoot-Hoot into a Noctowl. I evolve my Geodude into a Graveler. My encounter for the Trophy Garden is a Pikachu, and I head down to the Underground, where I farm for a Thunderstone to evolve it into a Raichu. Speaking of the Underground, I can also get an encounter there, so I get a different fire type, a Houndoom. I evolve my Wurmple into Cascoon, and then into Dustox, and I evolve my Bidoof into a Bibarel. Do all of these runs in real time on my Switch, and I trained up all 14 of these Pokemon to level 30. The only ones I didn't train to level 30 are the 5 you can see at the bottom of the box there. This obviously took me hours, so I'd really appreciate if you could subscribe to the channel and like the video. It makes all this hard work worthwhile. But with this, I build a new team, and it's time to head back and take on this gym. After all that hard work, I went into this gym with Mew at about half health because I completely forgot to heal. It didn't matter too much since I went for an Aerial Ace on her Meditite taken out in one hit, and 2 Aerial Aces taking out the Machoke. I also taught it Flamethrower, and this Lucario stood no chance. I got a critical hit, and 1 hit with Flamethrower took it down. This made all the preparation worth it. I managed to take her out really easily compared to last time, and I didn't even lose a team member this time. One of the reasons I took so many of my team up to level 30 was because I was preparing for the next gym with Wake as well. I'm taking Pachirisu, Raichu, Mew, Budew, Quagsire and Golbat into this fight, meaning I've got a ton of type advantage against this guy. I also battled pretty much every trainer that I could find around the map to do all this training, meaning I had a ton of money that I spent on moves in the department store. Taught Pachirisu Thunderbolt to try and take Gyarados out in one hit, but it didn't quite go like that. He managed to survive with just a little bit of health. I went for another one next turn as he used a super potion that didn't quite heal him up to full health. That meant I could take him out in one hit, and his super potion was completely pointless. Sent in his Quagsire next turn, so I switched to Purdue. I'm really surprised this thing hasn't evolved from Friendship yet. I made sure when I was in the underground earlier I got a shiny stone so that I could evolve it as soon as it was ready, but it still hasn't done the first evolution yet. One Grass Knot still was enough to take Quagsire out even in its first form. His last Pokemon's a Floatzel, so I switched out to Raichu. It's really helpful having so many team members that are strong against his team. He used Ice Fang, which triggered static and activated paralysis. Didn't really matter anyway, because next turn I used a Thunderbolt and took it out in one hit. I have to say, I knew that was going to be an easy one, but I didn't think it would be that easy. After switching my team up so much, I decided on a semi-permanent team of Houndoom, Raichu, Golbat, Quagsire, Budew, and Mew. When I finally managed to evolve Budew, it's going to be an absolute beast since I can take it straight to a Rose Raid. Next up it's time for a rival fight with Tragic, and he starts with his Starly. I didn't actually look at what he starts with, so I sent out Houndoom, but I still managed to take him out with one Flamethrower. After that, he sent in his Buizel, so I switched out to Raichu. He hit us with a Tail Whip, lowering our defense, and then outsped us next turn with an Aqua Jet. This actually did a fair bit, but a Thunderbolt was enough to take him out next turn. It seems he just wanted to rub in the fact that he's already evolved his Budew and sends out his Rosalina, so I switch back into Houndoom. Goes for a Grass Knot, which does absolutely nothing, and I go for a Flamethrower next turn to finish it off. We're pretty much wiping his whole team in one hit, as long as we can get the right Pokemon out, so he's not much of a threat to be honest. His final Pokemon is his starter Monferno, and I switch back to Quagsire, who's 4 times strong against him. One Aqua Tail should be more than enough to take him down, even with the attack drop. Take him out in one hit again, and that's it, we've beaten our rival Tragic. It seems my team is starting to like me as I evolve my Golbat into Crobat, and I finally evolved my Budew into Rosalina. I actually don't think I had the shiny stone at this point. I think I went back to the underground later since I didn't evolve it straight away. The only reason I can think that I didn't do that is that I didn't have the shiny stone yet. Anyway, Fantasia starts with her Drifblim, so I start with Houndoom. I go for a bite and I don't quite beat it, but we do get the flinch off. She heals with a Hyper Potion next turn, and we go for another bite, taking it back to pretty much the same health again. She does the same thing next turn. This time we manage to get a critical hit and finally take it out. I don't think she has any more potions left, so that actually worked out really well. Aftermath does a tiny little bit of damage to Houndoom, but not enough to make me switch him out. She sends in her Gengar next, and I'm just going to go for bite again. She lands a Confuse Ray, which could be kind of annoying. Houndoom breaks through and uses a bite. She has a berry that lowers the damage from it, so we get just under half damage. This probably means that another bite would be enough to take it down, but with Houndoom confused and poisoned, that could have been really dangerous. If we'd hit ourselves in confusion then, we wouldn't have survived the poison. We were really lucky to break through that one, and it's definitely time to switch out now. She sends in her Miss Magius next, and I don't really know what to switch into here since I don't really have anything super effective. I just go for Raichu since he's a big heavy hitter on special attack. She goes for a Phantom Force and vanishes. This means that she's going to proc our static next turn. I was sure we were going to outspeed, so I went for an Electro Ball, thinking it wouldn't really matter anyway, but realistically I probably should have just gone for Thunderbolt. We go for Thunderbolt next turn, and it does way more than Electro Ball. She gets off a Confuse Ray. I'd love to pretend that I outsmarted her by giving him a Persian Berry, but actually Raichu's been holding this berry for ages, and I completely forgot that he even had it. I often give my Pokemon a status curing berry early in the game because I don't really have anything else for it to hold, and they end up just holding it for ages, and it comes in really clutch at times like this. She manages to confuse us next turn, holding on with just a Slither. We hit ourselves in confusion, but she's fully paralysed. Next turn Thunderbolt hits with a completely pointless critical hit, and we take out Miss Magius, getting us our 5th gym badge. We're heading over to the Steel Gym now, and on the way, on Route 218, I run into a Tentacle. I catch it even though I'm probably not going to use it, and then I evolve my Rosalina into Roserade. This must have been the time that I went to the underground and got the shiny stone. It's not going to be too useful for the next gym, but it's definitely going to be a helpful team member. I ran into a bit of an issue at the next gym. I'd over-leveled my team pretty much to the point where I couldn't get any more XP if I wanted to use them against the leader, so I had to take in a makeshift team, and I ended up losing Skunky and Meditite. It's kind of annoying since my main team would have taken these trainers out with no problem, but what can you do? I send in Mew first, and we go for a flamethrower to take out our Bronzor. The other team members I've brought into this fight are Houndoom, Raichu, Golbat, Floatzel, and Quagsire. I honestly thought flamethrower would take that thing out in one hit, but it didn't. It sets up a sandstorm next turn, and I go for another flamethrower, which should be more than enough to finish it off. It's kind of annoying that sandstorm's going to do chip for the rest of the fight, but it could have done a lot of damage if it used a different move. Next up is his Steelix, and it's kind of boring, but I'm just going to keep going for flamethrower. With this being the steel gym, it's my best bet. We take him down to the red with just one, as his earthquake doesn't really do too much damage. We take a little bit of chip from sandstorm, but I can definitely manage another flamethrower. He uses a full restore here, and hopefully with a bit of luck this flamethrower will take him out, making his full restore pointless. It didn't quite do enough, so I went for a flamethrower again next turn, as he used a hyper potion this time. I still managed to fully heal the Steelix, and with another flamethrower we took him back down to the red for the third time. I don't think he's going to have another healing item now, so one more flamethrower should be enough to finish him off. We outspeed with a flamethrower and finish his Steelix. His ace is a Bastiodon. This thing's a ground type as well, so I'm not really sure what I should do. I go for a Life Dew to try and heal Mew up a little bit and see how much damage he'll do with his first move. He goes for a Flash Cannon, which surprisingly only did a little bit. I was kind of expecting that to do a lot of damage. I went for a flamethrower next turn, knowing full well that we could survive another Flash Cannon, and he just goes for Iron Defense. I'm using special moves anyway, so I don't really know why he did that, but if he wants to waste a turn, that's absolutely fine by me. Another flamethrower takes him to half and gets the burn. Unfortunately, he had a berry to heal his health up a little bit more. It's kind of annoying when these gym leaders have so many healing items, but what can you do? I go for another flamethrower next turn as the burn does a little bit of chip. We take him way below half now, and he goes for another Flash Cannon. With his Bastiodon burn, I decided to just keep spamming Life Dew and stall him out. He doesn't have a single move that can do as much damage as I'm healing, so once I get past a certain threshold, I can go for one more flamethrower and finish him off. He just kept going for Flash Cannon, and eventually I got to that point where I could take two. He hit me with one last one, and I went for a flamethrower, outspeeding and finishing him off. That gets us our 6th gym badge, and that one was a pretty easy one. This is the point in the story where we've got quite a few battles with galactic team leaders. First up is Commander Saturn, and we haven't actually fought this guy yet in this run, so it'll be interesting to see which team members he has. I don't generally look up the teams of the enemies in this game, because I think it's more fun to just find out when you get there. He starts with a Kadabra, and I start with a Raichu. We go for Thunderbolt and take him below half, as he sets up a Reflect. We're going for special moves anyway, so it shouldn't matter for now. One more Thunderbolt is more than enough to take the Kadabra down, and his next Pokemon is a Bronzor. I could switch into Houndoom here for the type advantage, but I decided to just go for a Thunderbolt anyway. He sets up a Confuse Ray, and as long as we can break through next turn, we'll take this thing down as well. We break through quite easily, and down goes his Bronzor. His final Pokemon is a Toxicroak. I'm not even going to bother switching here as we snap out of Confusion first turn. We get the Paralysis from a Thunderbolt, and he sets up a Toxic. This Toxic isn't going to really do much since we can take him down with one more Thunderbolt next turn. That's exactly what we do, and he survives with just a Slither, getting a revenge, doing quite a lot of damage, and actually with the Poison Chip, that was quite dangerous for Raichu. I switch into Mew next since I know we can take at least one hit and finish this thing off, but he gets paralysed anyway. I go for a Flamethrower and outspeed. That was kind of close, we nearly lost Raichu there, but we managed to finish him off in the end. With Saturn defeated, the next fight is a rematch against Mars. She was kind of a problem at the start of the game, but at this point I don't think she's going to cause us too many issues. Her team members aren't that dangerous, and she starts with her Golbat. I could look up the teams of these fights, and I would have started with Raichu if I'd done that, but I just feel like it's a bit overpowered to know who they're going to send out first. The whole point of a Nuzlocke is it's supposed to be challenging, and yeah, granted I'm using Mew, which is a bit overpowered, but I am still pretty new to this stuff. After a couple of flamethrowers from Houndoom, we managed to take her Golbat out, and next up is her ace, her Purugly. This thing normally causes people problems at the start of the game, but it shouldn't be too much of an issue here. I switch out to Mew, and the plan here is to just keep going for Psychic. She gets off a Slash, doing about a quarter of our health with a critical hit. I go for a Psychic, and it does way more than half health. She heals up with a Citrus Berry, but considering last turn, we should easily be able to take it out. She ends up going for a U-turn, switching into her Bronzor, which is absolutely fine since we've got Flamethrower on Mew, which is super effective anyway. We do about the same as we did to the Purugly, but with a Flamethrower this time, as she hits us with a super effective payback, doing barely any damage. One more Flamethrower is enough to take it out, and since Purugly's coming back out now, we can just use one more Psychic to finish it off. This fight went really well, and I'm more than happy with how it ended. We finish off the Purugly, and that's Mars defeated, and it's now time to move on to the 7th gym. Before we do that though, we've got a few encounters we can get on the way. On Route 216, we catch a Sneasel. This will come in handy later, as an ice type would be really helpful for the team. For now though, I'm just going to put it in the box. We evolve Tentacle into Tentacruel, even though I'm not going to use it at the moment. And our next encounter is a pretty good one actually. On Route 217, I catch a Snova. It may be 4 times weak to fire, but it could actually come in handy in the right position later. We get to the 7th gym and she starts with her own Snova, and we start with Houndoom. With this being an ice gym, my plan was to send in Houndoom, use Flamethrower, and then if things get a bit sketchy, I can switch into Mew, who also knows Flamethrower. We take her Snova out in one hit, which is pretty much how I expected that to go. She sends in her own Sneasel next, and it seems like she's been taking a page out of my book with her encounters. She goes for a Hone Claws to raise her attack and accuracy, and one Flamethrower takes it out, making that completely pointless as well. This is going really well, but her next Pokemon isn't an ice type, it's a Medicham. This could be a little bit annoying, but I've still got a very decent amount of health. The only thing that's really done any damage to us was the hail. She hits us with a Brick Break, which I really wasn't expecting, and one of our best team members falls. It's really annoying to lose Houndoom here, but I switch into Raichu and go for a Thunderbolt. We do just over half health as she goes for a Brick Break again. That move's really dangerous. It takes Raichu down pretty much to the red. We go for another Thunderbolt, taking out her Medicham, and that thing was a real problem. At least it's gone now. With another bit of chip damage from Hail, Raichu's on very low health now. I'm definitely going to need to switch out. She sends in a Bomber Snow, which would have been really good for Houndoom to finish off, but I switched to Mew instead, since we still have Flamethrower. It's annoying that we lost our Fire type, but with Mew knowing Flamethrower, I do also have a Graveler in the PC, which I can teach Flamethrower or Fire Blast to as well. We go for a Flamethrower, which is 4 times effective, knocking it down to half health. He heals up with a Citrus Berry, meaning one more Flamethrower probably won't be enough. He hits Mew with a powerful Blizzard, and there's not really anything I can do now apart from just go for another Flamethrower and hope for the best. We don't quite do enough as he goes for a Blizzard again next turn, and now he's taken out Mew as well. We've lost 2 of our best team members in this fight, and this is really, really bad. I honestly thought this was going to be the easiest gym considering we had Houndoom, and I really should have switched as soon as she sent Medicham in. This is the problem with being kind of new to this stuff, is unexpected things like that happen that could have definitely been avoided if I just had a bit more experience. I send in Crobat as she fully heals. One Cross Poison does a little bit of damage, and another one takes him below half health. We are really lucky that he missed that Blizzard, because he could have quite easily killed Crobat with that. One more Cross Poison is enough to take it down, and we've got our 7th gym badge, but at what cost? We say goodbye to Houndoom and Mew, and replace them with a Graveler that knows Flamethrower, and a Murkrow which I can evolve into a Honchkrow. I get the Dusk Stone in the Galactic Hideout and immediately evolve my Murkrow into a Honchkrow. This thing's actually really good, and it'll be a decent replacement. It's time for the final showdown with Team Galactic at the top of Mount Coronet, and first up is a double battle between Mars and Jupiter, and me and Tragic. This goes pretty well, and we didn't lose any team members and managed to take them out with Tragic's help. It's time for the final fight with Cyrus, and this guy is going to be a big issue. He sends in his own Honchkrow as we start with Golbat. Don't really have any great counters for any of his team, to be honest, and I decide to just start with a Sludge Bomb and see how much it does. It does just under half health as he gets a critical hit with his first move. We go for another Sludge Bomb, taking him down to a Sliver, and for some reason he used the most pointless move ever in Defog. He goes for a full Restore next turn, and it's quite good to get that out of the way this early. A Frost Poison does more damage, but it turns out it was a critical hit. His next Pokemon is a Gyarados, and this thing's going to do a lot of damage if I'm not careful. Go for a Sludge Bomb first turn, and he goes for an Ice Fang, taking us into the red. Definitely going to need to switch now, and Raichu's going to be the best option here. He goes for an Ice Fang, and it doesn't do too much damage. A Thunderbolt next turn is going to be enough to take him out. He had a Wakan Berry, which weakens electric type moves, which is absolutely devastating since he goes for an Earthquake next turn, taking Raichu out. I can't believe he had that. That was so unlucky. We would have definitely beaten him with the Thunderbolt if it wasn't for that berry. I send Quagsire in next turn and go for an Ice Beam as he uses a Super Potion to heal up. Ice Beam doesn't even do half of what he's got left, and there's not really a whole lot I can do here, so I just go for an Ice Beam next turn. Luckily with Water Absorb, he's not able to damage us with Waterfall, and next time he goes for a Crunch but doesn't get the flinch. His Weavile comes in next, and it would be really handy to have Houndoom now, but unfortunately we don't have him. I go for a Toxic as he uses Dig and manages to avoid it. I switch into Honchkrow here since Dig won't affect it, and I should be able to bait it into using a different move. There's not really a whole lot I can use here, so I switch back to Quagsire in the hopes that he doesn't use another Dig. Even if he does, I can just switch back to Honchkrow and do the same thing again. I go for a Bulldoze next turn since I'm not actually sure if it hits while they use Dig. It obviously doesn't, so I switch back to Honchkrow and his Dig doesn't affect me again. There's not a whole lot I can do here, so I just decided to go for a Psychic for some reason. I didn't realise it wouldn't be effective against Weavile, and I've just wasted a turn. I decide to switch again here, and this time I switch into Roserade as he goes for an Aerial Ace, taking me below half again. I'm going to switch back into Quagsire here. I just realised I forgot to mention that my friend was available before this fight, and we traded my Graveler back and forth so that I could evolve it into a Golem. This means I have a Golem with Flamethrower, which is actually going to be quite useful against this Weavile. I decided to let the Dig hit this time so that I could get the Toxic off. At least with it having bad poison, meaning that every time the poison will do more damage, I can now just do a couple of switches and hope for the best. I knew he was going to go for a Dig here, so I went for a move anyway, letting the poison get a bit more damage. This means I can switch into Honchkrow, and he's not going to affect me, meaning that the poison's going to do another hit. This is great because I can now switch into Jawbreaker, my Golem, and he can't really do anything to it. Pretty sure the only move he can use here to do any sort of damage is Dig, and it takes 2 turns, so I can just switch to Honchkrow as soon as he uses it, meaning that he won't affect me and his poison's going to kill him. That's exactly what happens. I switch out, and his Dig is his final move before the poison takes him down. This was actually a really effective tactic, and I'm pretty glad that I figured this one out. I was pretty proud of myself, to be honest. Another great thing that happened at the end of this fight was the Golem learnt Earthquake, which is going to come in really handy later. I switched out his Bulldoze for Earthquake. His last Pokemon is Crobat, so I went for a Psychic knowing that it's super effective, but he managed to outspeed with a critical hit, Cross Poison, and took Honchkrow down. It's kind of annoying, but at least I can switch into Golem now and go for Rock Blast. He used his Quick Claw and managed to get a U-turn off before we could do a Rock Blast, but with 3 hits from Rock Blast, we should be able to take him out next turn. The minimum hit you can get from Rock Blast is 2, and that should be more than enough to finish him. He doesn't do any damage to us, and 2 hits from Rock Blast finishes off Cyrus, and now it's just a fight with Dialga. I do have a Master Ball which I throw at it, but I'm not going to count it as an encounter since it's a legendary, and we've already used Mew in this run. It'd be a bit overpowered if I used the Dialga as well. Our next encounter is Wingull, and that's on route 219, but I'm probably not going to use it. I add Psyduck to the team and evolve it into a Golduck as a replacement for Honchkrow. I had the same issue that I ran into earlier, where basically my entire team was at the level cap and I couldn't afford to get any more experience without them leveling above the level cap and not being able to use them. So I ended up taking out pretty much all the gym trainers in here with an alternative team. I thought Golem was going to absolutely destroy this gym leader, but his Raichu knew Surf, and as I said before, I don't look up the moves, so I really wasn't expecting that. It's kind of annoying to lose Golem here, as he was our only Pokemon with a Fire-type move at this point, but I switch into Quagsire and go for a Bulldoze, taking his Raichu down to half health. I go for another one next turn, as he just tries to use Surf on our Water Absorb Quagsire and does absolutely nothing. We're able to take down his Raichu. Next up is his Ambipom. I decided to stay in here as he goes for a fake out and gets the flinch off. Next turn he goes for a double hit, but we manage to avoid it and get the Toxic off. He hasn't really done much damage to us now, so we don't need to switch out just yet. I decided to stay in and go for a Bulldoze. We managed to avoid a double hit again, which is actually kind of crazy, and we take it down to half health. With a chip from Poison, a Bulldoze should be able to take him down. He goes for a double hit next turn, and we don't get lucky again. He actually manages to hit us this time, but it doesn't do too much damage, and one more Bulldoze takes his Ambipom down. Next up is his Octillery, and I'm starting to question whether this guy is actually an electric gym leader or not. Try to set up a Toxic as he goes for a Focus Energy, but unfortunately it missed. Try to go for Toxic again as he goes for an Aurora Beam. He doesn't quite do half the health we have left, but with him avoiding a Toxic again, I think it's time for us to switch. I've added Sneasel to the team now, so I send him in. He goes for an Aurora Beam, which doesn't really do any damage to us since we're an Ice type anyway, but he does lower our attack, which is kind of annoying. I went for a Metal Claw, and it did absolutely nothing. I could have switched here since Sneasel only had 3 HP left, but I decided if I'm going to lose a team member, it should probably be Sneasel anyway, so I just kept going for Fury Swipes to try and get a little bit of extra damage off. It's really annoying that we didn't land the Toxic earlier, since he would be getting hit with Toxic every turn here, and we probably would have taken him down. I decided to send in Crobat next, and since we've got the Poison Barb, our Poison type moves are going to do more damage. I decided to go for Cross Poison instead of Sludge Bomb here, and we managed to do way more than half health. He hits us with a powerful Aurora Beam, but we can definitely withstand another one, and we outspeed anyway. We landed a critical hit with Cross Poison, which I don't think we actually needed, but it can't hurt. It's time for his final team member, and he sends in his Luxray. This thing is extremely dangerous, especially with Intimidate. I was in serious danger of losing this fight at this point, so I switched into Golduck, even though he's weak against Luxray, as I needed a clean switch into my Roserade if I was going to stand any chance against this thing. Unfortunately, that means that we lost Golduck, but it means I can now switch into Roserade. Even though electric moves won't do too much damage to us, we also don't really have any moves to use against him. We go for a Grass Knot and he hits us with an Ice Fang out of nowhere. I didn't realise he had this move, and this is really bad. He uses another one next turn and gets a critical hit just to rub salt in the wound. With Quagsire on low health, I don't have a good switch here, so I just went for Crobat. I'm hoping to take this thing out with one Cross Poison. That's exactly what happens. We landed a critical hit, which I'm not sure that we needed, but I'm really glad that we got it. This means we've taken out Volkner, but I've only got 2 team members now, so I'm going to have to build my team again. My encounter for Victory Road is an Onix, which is going to come in really handy. I also added Snover to the team and evolved him into an Abomasnow. As I got to the end of Victory Road, I went into the Pokemon League to heal my team. I didn't realise if you get too close to the door, it triggers a battle with your rival. This is really annoying since my team wasn't really ready for this yet, but I tried my best anyway. I started with Abomasnow and he started with Staraptor, which is actually a pretty good matchup. Unfortunately, he had close combat, which I wasn't expecting, and he took Abomasnow out in one hit. This is not looking good. At least we got a little bit of chip. I send in Pachirisu next. He's a bit of a glass cannon, but I think he'll be able to take it out. Goes for a U-turn, which is kind of annoying because now he's switched into a different team member. Sends out his Infernape, which takes the Thunderbolt, but with it being 10 levels higher than my team, it doesn't really do any damage. I expected him to use a Fire-type move next, so I switched to Quagsire because I knew it wouldn't do too much damage. With Quagsire being a surviving member of my original team, he's actually level 57, so he's kind of on par with this Infernape. He used a close combat, which I wasn't expecting. I was kind of hoping he'd use a Fire-type move here, but at least I can use Earthquake next turn. For some reason, he has a U-turn as well, and he manages to switch into his Roserade. I get off an Earthquake, and it doesn't quite do enough damage to take it out. Luckily the hail does a little bit of chip and finishes it off, but it means that my Quagsire is now in a position where I'm going to have to switch him out. He sends his Infernape back in, so I decided to stay in and go for a Surf, but he outsped with a close combat, taking down Quagsire. I think this is probably going to be the end of the run at this point, since I don't really have any good team members left. I had to send in Onyx since he's the only team member that has a super effective move against him. I knew full well that he was going to use close combat, but I have Sturdy, so it means I can survive at least one hit. We managed to get the dig off, and we get underground. He goes for U-turn trying to switch out, but he can't hit us. Dig connects, and he survives with a tiny bit of health. The hail's finished now, so we weren't able to get the chip to finish him off, and he goes for a close combat next turn, taking Onyx down. The only team member with any real power left is Crobat. He's been absolutely clutch for this whole run, and maybe, just maybe, he can finish off Tragic. I go for a Sludge Bomb and take his Infernape out. This is a good start. Next he's going to send in a new team member, his Heracross. We haven't seen this thing yet, so we don't know what moves it has. I decided to go for Fly since I knew I could outspeed, and it means that I can see what he's got. Of course he has Rock Slide, and it was really lucky that we avoided that. We managed to take him out with one more Fly, and it's actually looking like I might be able to win this fight. If I can win, it means that I can train up another team since I have enough team members in the PC to replace the ones I've lost. Go for a Sludge Bomb next and take him into the red as he goes for an Ice Fang. It doesn't do too much damage, and I go for a Sludge Bomb next turn, taking out his Floatzel. His next Pokemon is going to be a bit of a problem, being Snorlax, since it's so tanky. If we can get the poison off, that would be really good. I decide to just go for Sludge Bomb again, and we don't do too much damage, but he goes for a Covet and doesn't do too much damage either. We go for another Sludge Bomb next turn, but we still haven't got the poison off as he goes for a Yawn. This is a big problem, since we can't use items in battle. I'm not going to be able to do anything once we fall asleep. He hits another Covet, getting us into the red, and gets us asleep now. I'm going to have to switch, but there's nothing I can switch into. This is really bad. I'm just going to have to keep going for Sludge Bomb and hope that we wake up. He gets another Covet off next turn, and with that, Crobat's down. I'm going to send in Giraffe Rig now as our final hope. I have Torted Psychic, which is a strong move, but with it being about 10 levels lower than the Snorlax, it really doesn't do very much. We get the special defense drop, so next turn we could probably do a little bit more. He survives with just 2 HP, and he's really holding on. He actually managed to take down the Snorlax, which I really was not expecting at all. But unfortunately, Tragic still has one more team member. He sends Staraptor back in, and I know for a fact that this thing has U-turn, which is going to be super effective. It doesn't really matter since we only have 2 HP left anyway, and he manages to take us down. Our last team member is Pachirisu, which is super effective, so if we can get a Thunderbolt off, then we can actually win this. It doesn't happen, as he gets close combat and finishes off Pachirisu, taking out my final team member and ending the run. I'm really happy with how far I got with that run, and if it wasn't for that unlucky encounter at the end, we probably could have won this one. Even with my team not fully trained up, I actually nearly managed to win that fight, and if we got into the Pokemon League, we could have been in with a chance of winning this. Thank you so much for watching the video, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.